Living on planet Earth, we know that disasters come in all shapes and sizes. We have everything from powerful tornadoes which can be up to a mile wide, to hurricanes that can be over 600 miles wide, earthquakes that can shake the ground for many miles around, to the massive tsunamis that they trigger and which can travel across the ocean in a matter of hours. But this is just part of what comes with living on our planet. It's unavoidable. What's truly unsettling is when disasters happen that are man-made, as opposed to just being associated with Mother Nature. Ecosystems can be destroyed, climates can be changed, and entire species of plants or animals can even go extinct. From chemical leaks to oil spills, here are 5 man-made disasters that cost millions. During the 1950s, people in the town of Minamata, Japan, started noticing something very strange. Their cats were going absolutely crazy and throwing themselves into the ocean. Soon after, a strange sickness started to spread around town. People reported numbness in their limbs and lips, difficulty hearing and seeing, tremors, difficulty walking, and even brain damage. Some people even seemed to be going crazy, shouting uncontrollably. Finally, in July of 1959, researchers from Kumamoto University discovered the source of the illness: high levels of mercury poisoning, which they named Minamata Disease. But how were all of these people and cats being poisoned? Scientists suspected the area's fish were being poisoned. Since the diets of the people were almost entirely fish, they were also getting poisoned. Where was all the mercury coming from? It was found that it was a chemical plant on the Shiranui Sea. They were dumping their mercury-heavy byproducts into the water. However, they continuously denied the allegations, and their dumping continued until 1968. Until that time, the people continued to suffer. Pregnant women gave birth to poisoned babies with severe deformities and disabilities. After the dumping finally came to an end, 2,955 people contracted Minamata disease, and 1,784 people died from it. Things were not settled until October of 2004, when the Japanese Supreme Court ordered the government to pay damages to the disease victims for not taking enough regulatory action to protect the victims. This was Japan's worst case of industrial pollution in the history of the country. The production of certain chemicals has always been an environmental concern. However, not every country has the same standards when it comes to safety and oversight. In 1969, in the city of Bhopal, India, a factory was built to produce a pesticide. Although it was a great addition as far as the local economy was concerned, it would prove to be a bigger disaster than anything. One chemical compound that was used in the processing of the pesticides was called methyl isocyanate. It's a very dangerous gas that will poison anyone or anything that breathes it in. In December of 1984, most of the plant's safety systems for monitoring the levels of the methyl gas were in very poor condition. In addition, several vent gas scrubbers, which are intended to clean the inside of the pipes, had been out of service for some time. On December 2nd, it's believed that water somehow entered the pipe and got into the tank. This tank contained 42 tons of the poisonous gas. When the water was introduced, it caused a runaway exothermic reaction, which increased the pressure in the pipes. As a result, some of the gases started leaking out. Eventually, a large explosion released tons of gases. Being heavier than oxygen, it settled into the surrounding cities and villages. Alarms went off from the plant. Many people ended up becoming poisoned simply by opening their doors in order to investigate the alarm. Evacuation orders were put in place, but much of the damage had already been done. Around 170,000 people were poisoned, along with thousands of heads of livestock and goats. Exact numbers are not known, but it's believed that around 16,000 people died. The resulting settlements alone came to over $470 million. Today, that amount would be equal to $860 million. Ships are not the only vessels that you'll find in the sea. With the oil industry being as strong as it is, many countries have oil rigs set up off the coast of their shores. These huge structures weather everything from rough seas to hurricanes, all while drilling deep below the sea floor for oil. But disasters reach a new scale when you mix technology with geology. In 2010, 41 miles off the coast of Louisiana, the oil rig Deepwater Horizon was drilling as normal when a blowout occurred. This is where a large pocket of methane gas rushed from the underground well up through the pipes, causing an explosion and fire on the rig. After burning for more than a day, the rig sank. 11 people died. The environmental impact was even more severe, with the equivalent of 8,000 barrels spilled into the sea per day. This disaster at sea came with a price tag of nearly $65 billion. Oil spills at sea are always more costly than average wrecks at sea. The disaster of the Deepwater Horizon oil rig was an example of the worst-case scenario for environmental disasters in regards to financial cost. Luckily, the environmental impact was lessened by the quick actions of government cleanup efforts. Had things gone differently, the impact could have been worse than the 1989 wreck of the oil tanker Exxon Valdez, which released 1.5 million gallons of crude oil into the sea after striking a reef off the coast of Alaska. In that case, over 1,200 miles of coastline were affected, of which 200 miles were moderately or heavily covered with oil. China has never been known as being the most safety-conscious country in the world. As a matter of fact, they're known for having very little safety and environmental oversight. Such was the case in Jilin City, China, on November 13, 2005. This was the day that a series of explosions rocked a petrochemical plant over the period of 1 hour. The blasts were so powerful that they shattered windows at least 300 to 600 feet away. Obviously, an explosion in any sort of chemical plant poses a massive amount of risk, not only for the workers and the surrounding community, but for the environment. Due to the explosions, 70 people were injured and 6 people were killed. It took nearly 24 hours for the fire to be put out. The government feared that the chemicals were airborne due to the fire, so they ordered over 10,000 people to evacuate the area. Additionally, they were scared that more explosions could happen. Although the air turned out to not be polluted as they thought, they didn't anticipate the pollution of the Songhua River. The subsequent pollution caused by the explosion released over 100 tons of chemicals containing benzene and nitrobenzene into the river. Exposure to benzene reduces red blood cell count and is linked to leukemia. The polluted water continued to spill downstream. Along this river are a number of water treatment plants and hydroelectric dams. The water treatment plants are designed to clean water of most impurities. However, none were able to handle toxins of this magnitude and caliber. Water supplies to cities and towns were shut off, causing panic buying of all the water in supermarkets. Millions of gallons of water were brought in from surrounding provinces. Even train tickets and flights were sold out as everyone was trying to leave the areas and escape. As is typical from the communist country, they were pretty tight-lipped about how extensive the damage actually was. No financial figure was ever given. However, it's speculated that the damages could have passed the $1 billion mark. People usually associate smog with cities such as Los Angeles and San Diego, where there's a large population who drive vehicles that produce a large amount of emissions. After all, smog is a very intense type of air pollution that consists of smoke and fog. So the emissions from the vehicles mix with fog rolling in from the Pacific Ocean to create a thick layer of polluted smog that sits like a heavy cloud over the city. But how often do we associate smog with London, England? In 1952, a perfect set of weather conditions came together to allow a thick layer of smog to settle in the city. A period of unusually cold weather, combined with an anticyclone and windless conditions, collected airborne pollutants, usually arising from the use of coal, to form the smog. It lasted for a period of 4 days until the weather changed. Once it did, the poisonous air dissipated rather quickly. While it was around though, it did a lot of damage. First, it was thick enough that even staying indoors did no good. Second, it reduced visibility to nearly zero, causing a lot of car crashes and grounding flights. In total, over 100,000 people were made ill by the smog. Initial death tolls showed that around 4,000 people died as a direct result of the poisonous cloud. More recent studies, though, have shown that those numbers could actually have been around 10,000 to 12,000. This even led to severe changes in various practices and regulations, including the Clean Air Act of 1956. Millions upon millions of dollars were spent to update building ventilation, as well as to update public transportation systems, making them more environmentally friendly. Yes, humans can do quite a number to the environment as well. What's more is that in the end we end up paying for it many times over, not only in terms of health and lives, but financially. However, where humans messed up, humans can also improve. So at the very least, there's an opportunity to improve. To see another video like this, be sure to click the link on screen now. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.